The Iranian people are not just done with the Islamic Republic. A lot of them are done with Islam. And also, the biggest problem Slovakia is going to have is that it's not going to know what to do with the volume of applications it's going to get after the Islamic Republic falls, because there's going to be so many Iranians who want to become Savak members so that they go after the remaining Islamists and mullahs and IRGC members. So I think that's going to be the greatest challenge for Savak. Too many applications to join. But yeah, let's go. Yeah, Kian in the chat saying that includes me. Yeah.
All right,
All right.
Giovanna is up next.
Hi, I just wanted to say that whenever you personally or as a nation or whatever give your power to an external force, you end up being a servant of that force. No matter what kind of ideology it's supposed to represent, and it may seem all shiny and new, but it just topples down. And historically, all systems failed humanity. The only system that I see not failing humanity is actually people believing in themselves. And that takes a lot of work. And I understand it's a little bit strange and an out there concept, like people just being, I don't know how to say that. English is my third language. I don't speak like a native English
You're doing
speaker.
good. We understand you.
But the whole idea that I personally represent is that all systems are eventually doomed to fail because they concentrate power in small circles, and centralized power is basically the rule of a few people over the majority. And that is a huge step, a huge leap forward that humanity has to make in order to free itself from that kind of system. And it's kind of maybe utopian talk right now, but like we have the technology to and the know-how and the people and everything in place, and the infrastructure, everything to make that happen. And there's only a couple of people that are hindering us from doing that, and that are those people who are still in that kind of story that they have to be the boss of everybody else and have to steer humanity into a future that they think it's best for them. And it's just a mess. And this is a start of something that I personally see it as a start of something that nobody knows where it's going to end, because it's a new story that is being written. And the rejection of Islam and other religions is a stepping stone towards actually humanity believing in itself for once. That's all I wanted to say. Yeah.
All right, Jeffrey wanted
All
to
right.
say something quickly.
No, no. Can I first respond to that? Because, like, before Jeffrey, first of all systems don't fail. Many systems have been proven to make people's lives better, right? All systems don't fail humanity. There are many systems that we could empirically show that have been very, very successful. And I do believe that, individualism is good to a certain extent, like believing in yourself, but humans are social animals, and beyond individual identity we have also collective identity. Humans live in, like, our DNA requires us to live in tribes, and we are fulfilled when we have a group identity, and group identities are important for our survival, and group identities are also important for our mental health. Groups require systems. You cannot just rely on yourself as an individual. Humans are the most social animals out there. They rely on each other. So we cannot just believe in ourselves. We also have to believe in each other. We also have to believe in the groups that we are in. Too much centralization of power is a thing that we have to address, but too little centralization of power is also an issue, because any system requires management, any system requires leadership. So some centralization of power is to some degree required, and this is where the best systems, after the age of enlightenment, through the classical liberal values, through systems that we call the modern republican tradition or the modern nation states, we actually came up with the very standards that balances centralization of power and decentralization of power at a perfect rate, a perfect level. We came up with systems to avoid too much centralization of power. For example, Montesquieu came out with the separations of power within government. When we have the judiciary separated from the legislative, separated from the executive, that was a system that we put in place to make sure that the government doesn't have too much centralization of power. Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, capitalism, free trade, all of that managed to come up with economic systems that doesn't have too much centralization of economic power, right? So these are systems that we could show. I mean, you say like, oh, these systems have always failed. I mean, if you look at empirical data, humanity has been improving for in the past 150 years. We have been improving by every single metric: our
Absolutely.
health, our education, our access to clean water, our access to each other. Just 200 years ago, every mother would have to bury half of their children before they reach age 5. Now, a mother cannot even imagine that happening to them. Average people today in the poorest countries are living higher quality lives than Marie Antoinette, right? So, which was the richest woman at her time. So, this is amazing progress, and it's only because of the systems that came out of the age of enlightenment from Western Europe. So, these systems are working, they're making our lives better, and everything shows that it's continuing to improve. And when it comes to collective identity, yeah, I respect individual identities. I think individualism is very important. But when it comes to collective identities, I do think that nationalism and patriotism is the best collective identities that humanity has ever created. And to me, it seems like it's working and everything is getting better under this new model.
Okay, I respect your opinion, but I disagree because it simply is going back to something that has failed once. Like didn't fail completely, but it did not fulfill or make use of the whole of the human potential. And that is something that I cannot stand to watch, because I believe that humanity as a whole has so much potential to become something
So Giovanna,
better.
not being able to take off humanity's full potential. So basically, anything short of perfect, you're considering it a failure. I don't consider it a failure because we're short of perfect. I compare to what we had before, and if the system is causing us to improve, I consider that a success, even if it's not complete. And also, anything that could get us close to humanity's full potential has to include collective identity, because we are by when our very nature, humans are social animals. So individual identity is not enough. We need collective identities. So if you want to get to full human potential, you need to have our need for a society, a tribe, our need for having a social, a group identity in mind if you want to take advantage of the full human potential.
I respect that, and I agree that some people are still in that kind of a modality. Personally, I
That's our
believe that there.
DNA. That's our
Yeah, but
DNA.
like
Is yeah.
there are people who are maybe a different modality in at this point, and who are. I mean, the the whole. It doesn't have to be like everybody has to like evolve at once.
I agree that not everybody has to live the same way. To allow for some individuals to live differently, we need a safe society that we build with each for each other. We need to have a framework that provides enough security for those individuals who want to live differently to be able to live differently. But then to create that society, that requires group work for those individuals to be able to live differently in a safe and secure environment.
Yes, I agree that I agree with that.
All right, Jeffrey wanted to add something to that.
Yeah, if I could. The idea that you can have both communists and anarcho-capitalists are wrong for the very same reason, albeit they come at it from a different perspective. You're always going to have hierarchy and order. That's actually it's called emergent order. It's based on two realities: the law of unequal growth and the law of demand. The law of unequal growth says that each actor, because of its own inherent capabilities, luck, right, grows at different rates than other actors in this system. And the law of demand says the larger the actor gets, by definition, more demand it makes on the system. So the issue isn't between order or no order. The issue is what type of order exists, right? And so to bring this back to what like a lot of the to push back against the false moral flattening that exists, there was order under the Shah. that's true, that is night and day. The Shah's bold attempt at bringing Iran from its feudal-esque nature to what would be defined at the time as tolerant modernity is night and day different than the horrific crap that came after the Shah as it's represented by the mullahs. As far as like capitalism is concerned, very good system in most things. That being said, I'm going to tighten this shot group. It's true that the founding fathers of the United States very much supported capitalism. The United States was based on the jealous celebration of the value of the individual. You see it enshrined in all of our founding documents, provided it was also informed by enlightened self interest. And that's where you, again, it's what type of order exists. Even in a capitalist system, centers of gravity arise. So the question is, what kind of order do you want? Do you want one that's horrible as it's represented by Islam or the Soviet Union? Or do you want it represented by something like the United States or South Korea?
Well,
All right.
first, last point. I think we have to look towards our imagination to come up with a system that consolidates all these systems that have been beneficial to humanity and consolidates it into a system that can work universally in all in most countries. But it's an idea. It's nothing substantial yet. So that's my take.
Before we go to the next person, I just want to really appreciate Danny. It's really hard to track who's doing what and who wants to add a point and what people are saying in the chat. And I think he's missing on the conversation because he's just modding. So I really am feel bad. Thank you so much, Danny, by the way.
I appreciate
Thank
your
you.
appreciation.
Oh.
Sammy is next.
So by the way, when I was talking, Rebecca raised her hand in case you didn't see. Sammy.
Yeah, I saw.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. One being, I don't know whether you guys know Patrick Bet David. He's an Irani born American businessman, and I don't know why you don't like him, but he's very close to the Trump administration. And
I don't, it's not that I don't like him, I hate him.
says things that make sense to everybody. And,
He's
I believe,
retarded.
and what his opinion is that the son of Reza Shah Pahlavi is not a competent leader. Uh, he believes that anybody who Donald Trump has the power to dethrone Khamenei, and if Reza Pahlavi really wants that to happen, he should have some kind of contact. I don't know, what do you think about it? The second question I have is, what would be the effect of liberalization of Iran from Islam have in countries like Jordan or Iraq? That's two questions I would like you to answer,
All
Mr.
right.
Anand.
So first, let's look at his record, right?
Yeah.
He once said that he doesn't understand why Prince Reza Pahlavi, when we had the elections in Iran, the election for president, he said he doesn't understand why Prince Reza Pahlavi just doesn't go to Iran and participate in the election for president. Do you understand that somebody who says something like that is basically loses all credibility for having any opinion
No, but
regarding politics
yeah.
in Iran? Well, okay. No, let me go through the points that I'm trying to make. Okay. Also, please understand he had Prince Reza Pahlavi on his show, and he was like really admiring him and everything. And he turned against Prince Reza Pahlavi once Prince Reza Pahlavi was not coming on his show anymore, right? And he actually even admitted that multiple times, like he's not answering my calls. And the reason why he turned against Prince Reza Pahlavi was because he was not getting a response anymore for Prince Reza Pahlavi. So he got upset, he got jealous. Okay. Another thing to show his credibility, that in one of his shows when he was demonstrating how Prince Reza Pahlavi is not fit, he showed a poll. They're not taking Prince Reza Pahlavi seriously. So he showed a poll where the question was, who is the next supreme leader of Iran? And he showed that Prince Reza Pahlavi is not even on the list. And he says, like, look, Prince Reza Pahlavi is so not a serious candidate that he's not on the list of this poly market question. And he which, by the way, I hope you understand how retarded that is. The question was, who's the next supreme leader of Iran? Basically, supreme leader meaning like an ayatollah, okay? And he also said that, oh, it's actually interesting that, what's her name with the other one? Forgot her name. The one that got a Nobel Peace Prize.
An activist, I believe.
Nargis Mohammadi, right? So, he was like, oh, Nargis Mohammadi is not on the list as well. Wow. Okay, so he was wondering, like, oh, so maybe Nargis Mohammadi was not a serious candidate as well. Nargis Mohammadi is a woman. She wouldn't be on a list of people for the supreme fucking leader. So this is how retarded Patrick Bet-David is. Prince Reza Pahlavi is not going to be the supreme leader of Iran. He's not going to be the supreme leader of anything. We're ending the idea of supreme leader, and only heads ayatollahs could be supreme leader. So that's why he was not on the list. But he was showing that on his show as a way to demonstrate how unserious he is, that people are not taking him seriously. That shows that he doesn't know what he's talking about, and also shows that nobody on his team knows what they're talking about as well. So it's one thing for him to look at that poll and say, like, not understand what that this poll is not a good evidence for his point, but it's another thing for his entire research team looking at this and giving it to him, and nobody on his team told him that this is actually a retarded point. That is actually very impressive that nobody told him that, right? So, and also last point is that the Iranian people in the streets are fighting with their lives, shouting Prince Reza Pahlavi's name. There is not a single other name that is being even suggested. It's not like Prince Reza Pahlavi and then somebody else that is less qualified. Prince Reza Pahlavi, it's wrong to say Prince Reza Pahlavi is the best alternative, because to say that suggests that there are other alternatives. There is no other alternative. They don't even exist. And Patrick Bet-David doesn't understand this. He's also betraying Iranian people. Iranian people in the streets of Iran are dying just to be able to shout out his name. And by being against Prince Reza Pahlavi, you're basically standing against what the Iranian people are fighting for and what they're dying for. Does that answer your question, Sammy?
Yeah, so there were two questions. I would say he always brings the topic of Iran in his podcast. He's been doing so for a very long time. And it's very retarded of him to say who would be the next supreme leader of Iran. That I understand as well. And that's why I asked the question, if not Reza Pahlavi, then who? Then what? I get the response. The second question I asked was, what would be the liberalization of Iran from Islam lead to, and how would it benefit countries like Jordan and Iraq?
For Jordan and Iraq, first of all, you're not going to have the Islamic Republic trying to destabilize those countries. That's a huge benefit, right? Jordan doesn't have to worry about the Islamic Republic sending in its agents try to topple the regime. The Iraqis will not get the Hashd Shabi being funded in their own country, having a part like a Shia terrorist group running their politics. I mean, that would still be there, unfortunately, but at least it wouldn't be funded by Iranian gas and Iranian oil. So that's going to be a huge benefit. And when it comes to the Islam itself, I think that a lot of people, in the same way that the 1979 Islamic Revolution caused Islamization all around the region, both Shia and Sunni. So I would expect that the secularization of Iran will basically have the very opposite effect in a similar way, right? Because like the Islamization of not just the Middle East, but also Afghanistan and Pakistan and Indonesia and Malaysia, it was all tied to, and also North Africa, it all became amplified because of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. So, if the Islamization of Iran could have that much of an impact all around the region, I think that the secular, especially because I think the Iranian people are going to go for, they're not going to, just in the same way that the Islamists were not content to spread Islamism within the borders of Iran. I think Iranian people, given how much this Islamization came from outside, and also because a lot of these Islamists came from beyond our borders to come kill the Iranian people, I think just in the same way that Jews were not content with just having Israel after World War II and they went around the world hunting down Nazis, I think the Iranian people are going to also not be content with just secularizing Iran, and they're going to go out for revenge, finding their killers all around the world to not just kill their killers, but also to annihilate Islam. I think that we're going to be on a mission to spread secularization and anti-Islamism, not just within Iran, but also beyond our border. So I think you should get ready for a force. I think you're going to create basically it's an anti-Islamic dragon waiting to be awakened to come be unleashed upon the world.